You've definitely seen this notebook, right? That simple black cover, the elastic band, the little pocket in the back. It's an absolute icon. It's a tool for creatives, for thinkers, for travelers. But the business story behind the Moleskine notebook, well, it's way more complex and fascinating than its simple design lets on. It's a story that asks a really critical question for any brand people love. I mean, look, on paper, Moleskine's story should be a total home run. It grew like crazy, it went global, it launched hit after hit. So why then? Why wasn't the market rewarding it? That's the paradox we're going to unpack right now.
Okay, so check out these numbers because they tell a really weird story. The revenue just exploded. We're talking from 13 million euros to almost 100 million in just 8 years. That's phenomenal. But then you look at the stock price. After its big IPO in 2013, it just kept falling. Revenue was going through the roof, but Wall Street's valuation was sinking. To understand why, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning.
See, to really get Moleskine, you have to understand it wasn't just built as a product. It was revived as a legacy. It was this big idea all wrapped up in a super romantic, analog past.
This quote from the author Bruce Chatwin, it just says it all, right? The co-founder, Maria Sebergandi, she wasn't just bringing back a notebook. She was reviving a personal treasure, a home for ideas. And by linking it to legends like Hemingway and Picasso, she gave the brand this incredible, almost mythical foundation to build on.
So who were they even making this for? Well, the founders had a very specific vision. They weren't just targeting stationary buyers. No, they were going after this emerging creative class they called the new nomads. And this was absolutely key. They weren't selling an office supply. They were selling a lifestyle accessory for a really aspirational group of people.
So after the idea sparked back in '95, they made a critical decision. They sold the very first notebooks in bookstores, not stationery shops. Now this was a brilliant move. It instantly positioned Moleskine as a book yet to be written, an object of culture, not just commerce. And that cultural power, well, it would soon fuel a professional growth machine.
Okay, so this is where things really take a turn. The passion project that had grown so organically was about to get a massive injection of cash and corporate discipline. The informal, founder-led era was officially over.
The big shift happens in 2006. A private equity firm, Syntegra Capital, buys up a majority stake. And they bring in a new leader, Arrigo Burney, an executive who had a serious track record at luxury brands like Bulgari. His mission was crystal clear. Take this beloved, niche brand and turn it into a global powerhouse.
And he had a playbook, a super clear one, built on these 3 pillars. First, expand beyond Europe and North America. Second, move beyond just the classic notebook into totally new categories. And third, create new ways to sell everything, from e-commerce to Moleskine's own stores. It was a classic, aggressive growth strategy. So the big question, did it actually work?
Oh yeah, it worked. The geographic expansion was a huge success. While Europe and the Americas were still the core, you can see the Asia-Pacific region more than doubled its share of sales in just 7 years. That's huge growth in brand new markets.
And the product expansion was just as successful. By 2012, brand new products, things made just between '09 and '12, they were already accounting for about 16% of all revenue. Things like pens, bags, and other accessories were already bringing in 7% of all sales. The brand was stretching, and it was working.
The new sales channels also saw some crazy growth. The corporate B2B side, making custom notebooks for big companies like Starbucks and Mercedes-Benz, that was supercharged. Revenue jumped almost 150% in only 3 years. That is just explosive growth.
And it all adds up to this. By 2014, total revenue hit nearly 98 million euros. So, from a pure business standpoint, Burney's plan was a massive, massive win. But all that rapid, disciplined growth, it started creating some serious friction inside the company.
Yeah, this is where the story gets really juicy. How do you scale up a company that's built on creativity without accidentally killing the very culture that made it special to begin with?
You gotta imagine the vibe shift here. The culture clash was real. The company went from being run on the founder's personal relationships and gut feelings to being managed with formal processes, weekly meetings, and 3-year business plans. Look, this discipline was absolutely necessary for growth, but it was a massive change from the company's scrappy, startup-like roots. But right in the middle of all this internal change, Moleskine had this totally brilliant insight. Instead of seeing the rise of digital as this huge threat to their paper notebooks, they saw it as an opportunity. They realized their customers lived in both worlds. They'd take notes by hand, but they'd also use their smartphones and laptops. They existed on an analog-digital continuum.
This quote from the CEO of Evernote, a huge digital note-taking app, it says everything. They thought paper was the enemy. But then they realized that even their own super tech-savvy employees preferred notebooks for certain things. So instead of fighting, they decided to partner up.
And the result was a monster hit. The Moleskine Evernote Smart Notebook, which lets you easily digitize your handwritten notes, sold 100,000 units in just 4 months. It was the perfect bridge between the analog and digital worlds, and it proved Moleskine could innovate way beyond just a simple paper product.
Which brings us right back to where we started. Incredible financial success, an innovative new product line, and a sinking stock price. The company had hit a critical inflection point. And so here we are, back at the paradox. By 2014, after all the incredible numbers we've just seen, investors just weren't buying it. The market was sending a clear signal that something was off. The question was, what?
This was the terrifying question facing the leadership team. Had the relentless push for growth, the expansion into bags and pens, the corporate partnerships, the move into digital, had it all watered down the original powerful idea of Moleskine? Had they sold the brand's soul for scale?
And that left them with some really tough, high-stakes choices. Do they pull back and just focus on what made them famous, the classic notebook? Or do they double down on expansion? Do they push even further into digital or maybe even into physical spaces like Moleskine cafes? Each one of these paths represented a totally different vision for the company's future.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question. In this battle between its romantic, legendary past and its high-growth future, what is the true identity of Moleskine? It's a challenge so many successful brands face, forcing them to decide whether to protect their heritage or relentlessly chase the next stage of growth.